Hey, Mr. Robinson here. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the slides. We're starting the next unit. Okay, the next unit is known as the Gilded Age, and that's the time period we're studying, which is right around from about 1890 to 1915, 1920. Okay, and there's some things that are going on that we're going to study. It's called the Gilded Age because Mark Twain coined the term gilded, meaning it looks good on the outside, it's glittering on the outside, all right, a glittering exterior, but kind of corrupt on the inside. The outside is hiding some of the bad things that were going on the inside. All right, so when we start with, we're going to look at things that made America look really good at the time, um, but then later we're going to get to some of the problems that were occurring. So, as I go through the slides, the first slide here, hold on. All right. So the first slide, America is now a world leader in industrialized in an industrial sense. After the Civil War, America is now starting to get more onto the world stage. Reasons why America is an industrial leader. This is kind of the industrial age that we're talking about. Unlimited labor force, meaning there were a lot of immigrants coming over, all right, but also these natural resources. Now, America, really, probably the reason America is a world power today is because of these types of things. America changed the course of both world wars because of its ability to mass produce goods needed for war. All right, and it kind of starts with this being an industrial leader. All right, discovery of oil, these railroads. This is the age of railroads. Railroads were really growing. Um, Abundant coal supply. So this goes along with natural resources. Boom, natural resources. There you have coal. That is just an example of it. All right, the light bulb. Light bulb was, we're going to look at this a little more in a second. It was a big deal because now, because of the light bulb, guess what? You can work 24 hours. These plants or these industries can stay open 24 hours and keep on producing stuff even after the sun goes down. That's why the light bulb was a big deal. So um, there's some more innovations or inventions along with the light bulb. You have the telephone. All right. So we looked in the last unit. We looked at the telegraph. All right. Now you have a telephone. You can literally pick up. I got one right here. Boom. You can literally take it and call someone with it. And this is they didn't have cell phones then, okay, but I'm talking about house phones or work phones. All right. The Bessemer process is a steel process of producing steel, being able to more quickly and efficiently produce steel. So you need to know what the Bessemer process was. All right, particularly a guy Andrew Carnegie. He was the guy that's the steel tycoon who we're going to look at later, and he revolutionized or, this process to mass produce steel. All right, remember, because you need steel for what? What do you need steel for? You need to build buildings. You need to build railroads. All these things, and he was able to harness that power, and that's what made him what's known as a captain of industry. But it made him a very rich and successful person. All right, a typewriter was another invention. And it's used. Obviously, you know what a typewriter is used for, but clerical work, um, and to for communication as well. So there's kind of an example of the Bessemer process. Remember, it's important. There's gonna be questions on it. That's why I keep talking about it. Of producing steel. So the railroads, America's first big business. Now, if you look at the chart here, it has an outline of the railroads. All right. Now, if you look by 1900, 1890, 1950, there were a lot of railroads. All right, the railroad industry was growing massively, and we're going to look at someone named Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was a captain of industry in that business. All right, so the railroads, they were growing. Remember, this is particularly before the use of cars. All right, and then you see how railroad as a means of transportation really took off. So the Iron Horse, consumer goods, better transportation, 1869, which we talked about. We had the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. There's a picture of our guy I talked about, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Standardization of time, that came about because of the railroads. All right, because people want to know exactly when a train was arriving or leaving. All right, and so the creation of time zones. All right. Now what do we have? We have four time zones. Okay, you have the Pacific, you have the Mountain, the Central, and the Eastern. And that all came about because of the railroad industry. There's an example of the time zones. So a lot of towns or even urban areas started to grow or pop up because of the railroads, because people needed to be where those railroads were stopping. All right, it, if you have an urban area and it needs to deliver food to that urban area, then people are also going to get on that railroad or that train that goes along with the food to go to that urban area. All right. There were some railroad scandals, and again, a lot of we studied from the last unit. A lot of these railroads were overcharging to ship goods, to ship products. So there were some scandals with that, and that's where, as we look in the last unit, you have farmers being angry about overcharging. All right, and so then at some point, when we see if the public becomes outraged enough, all right, there's going to be some law or some government intervention to correct the problem that's going on. So the Supreme Court rules an Interstate Commerce Act, which is an attempt to regulate the railroads and to regulate their overcharging, and then their monopolies they were establishing. So with all this, sorry, all this unlimited immigration, you have a huge labor force. Okay, that labor force and all these immigrants coming in allowed for cheap labor. So these industries really grew. The business grew really big because these captains of industry, these leaders, like I said, Andrew Carnegie, Cornelius Vanderbilt, they didn't have to pay their workforce that much, because one thing about immigrants is they typically are they will work for less money than a native born American will, typically. That's just how it works. And the government, now we looked at the Interstate Commerce Act and some of these other things, but the government essentially, basically during this time, had a laissez faire policy, meaning hands off. Laissez faire literally means hands off. So the government said, our hands are off the economy. We're not going to enforce any of these regulations and allow these big businesses to grow, allow for these monopolies to flourish. And then high tariffs. So tariff is important. Something you need to know. A tariff is a tax on a foreign good. So if you're taxing foreign goods, you're allowing domestic or goods made in America to be sold at a greater extent or at a greater rate. So here are some. This is what you need to know for the assignment, and really you need to know throughout the unit. John D. Rockefeller. This picture is of Andrew Carnegie, but these are the guys you need to know. John D. Rockefeller. All right, I'm not talking about Rockefeller Records. I'm talking about John D. Rockefeller and the leader of Standard Oil, the world's richest man during this time. You need to know him because he was the leader of the oil industry, first billionaire. All right, so he had a little bit more money than I do. Andrew Carnegie, that's a picture of him. Now he's an immigrant, or was he's not alive anymore. He was an immigrant. The steel company. Now his industry, steel industry, where was it based? Does anybody know? Pittsburgh. What's the Pittsburgh football team? What's their nickname? The Steelers. All right, so maybe that's a way you can remember where his industry was based out of. And so Andrew Carnegie, remember with that Bessemer steel process. J.P. Morgan, so Andrew Carnegie, there's something called Carnegie Mellon University, Carnegie Hall. So a lot of these guys donated money along with all the money they made, but they exploited some of the labor that they had, some of these immigrants, but a lot of them donated money to certain causes, and that's where you hit Carnegie Mellon University. So J.P. Morgan, the financial world, the banking industry is what he controlled, and he loaned money to the government. So he's very powerful. If the government owes you money, I'm not talking about like a few dollars, like a lot of money. He was a very powerful person, J.P. Morgan. That's why there's called J.P. Morgan Financial today. Is a financial group. Cornelius Vanderbilt. He dominated the railroad and shipping industry. All right. And so he also donated a lot of money, and there's a university named after him. It's called Vanderbilt University. The Vanderbilt family also built the Biltmore House, which is the largest family home in the United States, and it's in North Carolina, in Asheville. DuPont family, all right, a successful manufacturing company, and then the James B. Duke with the American Tobacco Company, right, in North Carolina. But really, the ones I really want you to know here are Carnegie, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, all right, and then J.P. Morgan too. Those first four are the ones you really need to know. So George Westinghouse, don't worry about that as much. And so that's it. All right, now the assignment today is going to be rather simple. I'm going to put it on Canvas. It's going to be about 10 or 11 questions, multiple choice. So it's like a quick quiz, but it's not a quiz grade. It's classwork grade. It'll be due tomorrow, the 1st of September. Okay. So trying to get you guys to start off on a good foot here with the new unit. If you haven't done the test, you need to do it. All right, it'll be late. And email me if you have any questions about anything. I'm gonna put this video on Canvas. I'm also gonna put the PowerPoint on Canvas as well.